So to prove that I actually do homework and do prepare for my guests that do come in, albeit this was last minute. I mean, we've been trying to set up the interview for a few weeks now. So you just called me an hour ago. Let's do it today. I'm like, okay, I need to get something. And one of the first things I found on the internet was this whole thing about the Carpenters. Tell me about that. This is just really interesting.
So when I was in about 7 years old, we were living in Downey, and Downey had a year-round sports program called Downey Junior Athletic Association, DJAA. And so when you're in second grade, you had to be 7 years old. Nowadays, you're 5 years old, you can go play club teams right now, right? But you had to be 7, you had to be in second grade, and you had to go off and, sign up. And
why is that? Why did they do that? At Little League, I don't think we could start until 8 years old.
You were 8 years old, right? Back in those days.
Now kids they're playing T-ball like, well, it'll be 4 in a few months.
Get them younger.
Right.
Get those prodigies out younger. Sometimes it's a hit. Sometimes you burn the kid out at 5. He's not ready to do this, right? So there is a little bit of that. I wanted to be a dad because my father was my coach. That's one of the main things that brought me to wanting to be a father was I want to teach my kids how to play ball. And,
so your dad coached you?
Yeah, he was my coach all the way from second grade to when we moved, so 5 years, but those for me were the growing years, right?
Right.
And those are when, that was big time bonding. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, so I did that on one of those teams. We played, like 5 years in Downey. And one of the teams had this guy named Mike McCann. And Mike was just this great kid out of North Downey. And most of us were from South Downey. So we were literally, we were hop, skip, and a jump away from Paramount and Compton.
Right.
And it was,
right.
And these are actually some pretty hairy days. Pretty hairy days.
Closer to the 710 or the 605?
We were, right in the middle, right?
So, exactly.
It was like Imperial and Lakewood, right? Just you're moving down, and we won't go into the political quagmire that was like 1967, 68, right? We'd go off to Mike McCann's house, and Mike lived in North Downey. We were all a bunch of poor kids from South Downey. He was the rich kid on our team. It was awesome, right? So we'd go to his house, and he lived in what we called the Little White House. It had 4 major pillars. It looked like the White House. But catty corner, if you would go down, his house literally looked on a cul-de-sac that was right down. And in the end of that cul-de-sac were 3 houses built together, and that was the Carpenters. So the
Carpenters, they lived on the cul-de-sac.
Right on the cul-de-sac.
By the way, who didn't want to live on a cul-de-sac in the 70s?
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. Huge streets.
No cars. I remember the days going to my cousin's house, and there'd be 20 kids, and we'd all have big wheels. And you'd line them up in the street because you could do that and race down the street. There's no cars.
Yep.
So you got the Carpenters that actually lived.
The Carpenters were there. And on that street, I believe maybe all day, maybe 5 or 6 houses, maybe 1 or 2, and then the 3 that they had in the back. So, we would go over to the Carpenter's house. We'd go swimming at Mike's, and they were all friends. And Mike's mom's like, let's go over to the Carpenters. The Carpenters are one. I'm like, I sure as heck know who the Carpenters are.
So you understood.
Oh, I already knew. I'm 7 years old. I'm already singing the Carpenter stuff, right?
Right.
So I know all of it. And I'm like, absolutely, I'm getting the chills now talking about it.
I am too.
So I go over.
I live down the street from the Carpenters Performing Arts Center in Long Beach. And there's something about that music that they created, her voice. I'll drive by and think about her voice and just, get tingles. There was something about her.
She was so rich, and the bottom end that she had a huge range, man, but the bottom, to her voice was just so rich and robust. It was just amazing.
And by the way, I'll just play the drums too. And,
and
the trumpet
very effectively. She had the best drummer of the year was Karen Carpenter. I don't know how many years in a row, right? The woman could shred. Yeah. So we would go over, and ding dong, and we went over. I think I want to say it was there at least 3 years in a row that we went. But the first time we went, maybe only a subset of the whole team went. Most of the kids stayed back, but Mike's mom brought me over because she knew I wanted to go, and maybe about 3 or 4 of us went. And so we sat down. So I got to meet
John's
Richard.
Holding up his 8-track of the Carpenters.
8-tracks really weren't in at that time. Yeah. Oh man. So I sat down with her. We sat down.
And for those of you that don't know what an 8-track is, talk to your mom and dad. They'll explain it.
Perhaps. Or your grandfolks.
Right.
Yeah. So we sat down at the piano, and she starts running me through some scales. I hear you're a little singer, and so then she starts playing one of her songs, and I start singing it with her, and she's like, you're really good. So Karen
So
Carpenter.
not only do you get the baby's gig, but you're sitting there.
I was told by
singing.
Karen, she said, you are going to be great. You are going to go
Amazing.
somewhere someday. And I was like, and I'm like, Dad, did you hear that? Dad, you know, because Karen Carpenter said that, you know, so it was very cool. And so she fostered that. So I met her 3 times. Beautiful lady, just a great lady. But that was my shindigs with the Carpenters, soaking wet from a pool party, walking into their house and jamming some Carpenters tunes.
Wearing some OP shorts, hang 10
They
socks.
were probably
right?
cut off
Right,
jeans
yeah.
back in those days. OP didn't happen for me until I
That's
hit my
true.
high school time.
That's true.
Then I could afford to have OP. Yeah. We were, yeah, it's all good.
That's great.
But yeah, that was my Carpenter story. Yeah.
So-
just a great family, great lady.
That's awesome.